Hey guys, welcome to your second top 4 match here at Costa Mesa Regionals. As always, I am Regina Angley, and this is Kimo Nishimura. What's up? All right, and so we have for you Joseph versus Brandon for your last top 4 match before we go into finals. So this is gonna be fun.
It's a finals I'm actually excited for, unlike, the end of May.
Oh gosh.
It should be an exciting match. You have Joseph, modern gamer, Selmer versus Brandon Meckley. Both putting on pretty strong performances in the top 8. Joseph having that yet, as of now, unseen Virizion. Going to be interesting to see what role it plays. Just because it's such an odd Pokemon, I'd like to put a bit of focus on it. Going to try analyzing from memory a little bit here. Virizion is very much an interesting Pokemon. It's grass type, yes. And it's one of those, fighting things. Its role in this matchup is sort of debatable, I would think. Brandon having Pokemon like Charizard and Marowak. At first, you see the team preview coming up right now. Manectric, Porygon 2, Snorlax, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Virizion from Joseph.
And then,
Yeah,
and then Brandon having that Charizard, Porygon 2, Landis there, and Kartana, Alola Marowak, and that Tapu Lele.
Yeah, so Virizion looking very interesting here. I think it's a Pokemon worth just taking a quick look at. While Marowak and Charizard are traditionally very good answers against it, if they carry Stone Edge, which is quite possible just because you want to hit Pokemon like Charizard is one of the best megas right now. Its role kind of opens up a little bit there. It's not terribly afraid of Porygon 2. They always carry a fighting move, physical or special. Kartana, a little interesting to see the potential Virizion Kartana face down, as Kartana is kind of acknowledged as like the primary offensive grass type, and so you see Virizion come and try to take a little bit of that title back. The only Pokemon I'd say that objectively really scares Virizion is Tapu Lele, unless it's maybe a Z move, Bloom Doom or something from Virizion. So Virizion, but its physical defense is also low, and you can kind of see how it would be worn down pretty easily by a combination of speed control and just pretty regular offense. From Brandon, I kind of expect him to forego his Trick Room mode because of Joseph's primarily Snorlax-based team and Porygon 2 himself. Maybe opting to go for the straight offensive mode we saw in day 1 yesterday. You don't want to go all in Tailwind, at least in game 1, just because of the potential Trick Room. And the only way he can really stop it is by countering the Trick Room with his own Porygon 2.
Yeah. All right, and so Manectric and Virizion finally hitting this
that
screen.
appearance.
All right, I'm now we're super happy about this. And Kartana and Tapu Lele on Brandon's side going to be hitting the field as well. So Tapu Lele is psychic terrain, going to be covering this entire field and going to be making sure that Parider moves do not happen here. That Virizion finally making an appearance.
Virizion not looking in the greatest spot, though. It does have the Intimidate support, but the Tapu Lele threatening on its own, probably the biggest answer, or safest answer, I should say, on Brandon's side for the Virizion. I'm going to give the lead position, at least initially, to Brandon. I think Kartana Lele is very good in this situation. The Intimidate possibly helpful, but not putting out enough. Overheat, I suppose, didn't. But then you risk losing Virizion. You might be okay with Kartana. We do know it's Specs Lele, and I believe it is Gracium Kartana.
All right, Kartana actually switching out on Brandon's side. I'm going to be going for that Marowak, which also has a pretty good matchup against this Virizion. But Manectric going to be going for a Mega Evolution, going to be getting the Intimidate as its ability now. I'm going to be lowering that attack stage on both Marowak and Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele caring about it a little bit less than that Marowak is. And this Virizion finally going to be able to make some moves here as Manectric goes for the overheat into that into the Tapu Lele spot. So going to be targeting on this Tapu Lele, does get the special attack drop. Virizion going for the Leaf Blade also into the Tapu Lele slot, and not quite enough to pick up the KO even with the critical hit as Psychic connects with Virizion. Going to get that boost from Psychic Terrain, going to cleanly pick up that knockout.
Seeing part of the problem people have had with Virizion even in the past, even as far back as 2012, I believe, the damage output from Virizion always been kind of lacking. You see it right there. Even with a critical hit and an assisting overheat was not enough to get in the Tapu Lele. The Marowak switch and also very good from Brandon. Kind of limiting Manectric's options a lot. It can't really go for that free Volt switch and the overheat, weakening its power even further. I suppose you could go for the Snarl, try to pick up the KO on Lele, but the overheat drop might create a problem. Incineroar pretty nice as it scares Tapu Lele, won't see too much from that, but also scares Marowak. Knockoff pretty fatal for Marowak as it relies so much on its item Thick Club.
Yeah, and so the Tapu Lele going to be switching out for a Lander, so we will be getting another Intimidate onto the field. This time onto the Incineroar, onto the Manectric on Joseph's side. Excuse me. And Marowak protecting itself on this turn, probably, putting itself against a potential knockoff from this Incineroar, as Manectric does go for the Snarl. Does not hit the Pokemon that it quite wanted to, probably with that Tapu Lele, but does connect with Landorus, and it's going to be getting that attack, that special attack ball, and, sorry, going to be getting that special attack ball as the knockoff from Incineroar goes into the protected Marowak.
I mean, a successful Landorus switch is a successful Landorus switch. Manectric doesn't have a ton of options at this point. It's weak, and the Snarl doesn't do anything to these physical attackers. And even if it had the option to use an electric move, Landorus is out. You can't electric move either one of these Pokemon. You'll probably see the raw switch from Manectric as opposed to the Volt switch that we've been seeing previously. Incineroar, a little scared about the Landorus, but considering that Marowak creates a situation in which you can't just freely Earthquake, and the only Pokemon on Brandon's team that can switch into an Earthquake is Charizard, you might see Marowak switch in for the Charizard, though Marowak and Charizard together do sometimes create this sort of similar typing clash. It makes you a bit weaker defensively. Going to be interesting to see what Incineroar decides to do. We do see the Volt Switch just going for the hard read, not believing that Marowak is going to stay in.
Gets that special attack boost for the Marowak's Lightning Rod as the U-turn on Landorus hits Incineroar. Going to be going back to Brandon, so doesn't do the physical switch in, but does do the U-turn switch in. Oh, that Marowak's going to be a little bit scary now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that Marowak could pick up the KO on the Manectric, and might even go for a coverage move onto the Incineroar, just try to weaken it down for partners.
We say hello to Cortana once more as Incineroar goes for the knockoff into the Marowak. Going to be knocking off its item, that Thick Club, and the Marowak going for Flare Blitz. Going to be connecting. Going to get that. Going to be connecting with that Manectric. Not quite enough to really get it to a little bit over half health, but does get the recoil damage on there as well.
Honestly, that was a pretty good turn for Joseph, not believing that Marowak was going to leave. The only option for that Earthquake being Charizard, which we now know hasn't even made an appearance in this battle. The Landorus can't just come out and use its strongest move anymore. Cortana not in a great position because it's afraid of Incineroar, even though the Sacred Sword would be able to make contact without an Intimidate worry. Not even willing to risk that even.
And Landorus once more into the field for this Cortana on Brandon's side. Going to get another Intimidate into Incineroar and Manectric. That Tapu Lele is still in the back for Joseph at low health, though, so we will have that terrain expiring pretty soon. Marowak protecting itself. Not going to be taking another sort of Dark-type move from Incineroar as Manectric goes for the Overheat into what was that Cortana slot. Does very sad damage because it is now at -4 special attack. Knock off into the protected Marowak slot, and the Landorus is just sitting there really nicely.
I mean, I really like keeping Manectric in there because even though Overheat had weakened Manectric weakened it before, Cortana just so weak, and especially with that fire weakness, that the Overheated that situation would still easily pick up the KO. Manectric pretty free to switch here now that Marowak has been effectively neutered by the loss of Thick Club, doubling its attack stat. Marowak, not too huge an issue anymore. Really looking at that Landorus, it'd be interesting to see an Earthquake play where you just sacrifice the Marowak in exchange for doing large damage to the Incineroar, but it's pretty risky.
All right, Marowak going for the double protect, gets the double protect as the Manectric switches out for Porygon 2. Landorus using Earthquake, gonna be hitting that Incineroar and that. Go.
No, I just want to point out that I totally just called that risky play and being open to sacrificing the Marowak. You're welcome, everybody.
The Marowak getting that double protect though, so Brandon just kind of breathing a sigh of relief, like, hey.
Yeah, he was like, well, I'm going to sacrifice a Marowak, but I'm also going to press this button where maybe I don't have to sacrifice Marowak. It's a win-win, really, because Marowak is, at this point, weak enough where it wouldn't be a huge problem. You get something in safely on the next turn, even if the Protect falls through. Just allows you a bit more positioning tools. Manectric returning to the field, gets the Intimidate out again. The Earthquake, a bit scary for the Manectric, probably able to KO through the Intimidate, and again, we know that Brandon doesn't really value Marowak that much anymore. The Lightning Rod kind of limited in usefulness now that we know that Cortana and Tapu Lele are in the back, not weak to Volt Switch in itself, just wanting Marowak more for that offensive presence rather than that defensive redirection ability. Porygon 2 looking very good here. We've seen Foul Play, Ice Beam in the previous game, and Trick Room.
So
there's not a way to stop the Trick Room at this point in the game. Cortana's in the back, very fast Pokemon, gonna not enjoy Trick Room at all, especially with those paper-thin defenses. Really on Tapu Lele, I'd say, at this point, to try and carry a lot of the work. As you know, Manectric, not a Pokemon that likes Trick Room in itself, so it makes it a little bit harder to just press that button.
And Manectric protecting itself, so any sort of Earthquake from Landorus won't be connecting with it this turn. As Landorus does go for the Earthquake again, we're gonna be knocking out its own Marowak. You know, like you said, that Marowak is at this point just kind of like, oh, I can lose this, and it's totally fine. Porygon still taking that really nicely. Has the potential to just Ice Beam into this Landorus slot. Does go for it. And we might actually see this Landorus actually not go down.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
I mean, definitely an Assault Vest
Yeah.
there. That would have been, I mean, the KO, losing Marowak was fine, but since it was part of Brandon's plan, not the hugest loss, especially since you get Tapu Lele in for free. Having Kartana in that other slot, oh, I forgot it was so injured. Even a Snarl might be able to pick that up. But again, part of why Tapu Lele being injured, the health was sort of irrelevant, because this is another situation where I don't care if I press Earthquake. You're fine losing Tapu Lele if it means you KO the Manectric, because Porygon 2 has the potential to, you take, lost my train of thought a little bit. You KO Tapu Lele and Manectric with Earthquake, you do damage on the Porygon 2, you either damage it or it recovers, which forces you into a situation where it's either Lando Cart versus Porygon 2 or Cart versus Porygon 2. Cart has the potential to take on Porygon 2 1 versus 1.
Well, because like it's just, as much as we talk about it being like a really paper thin, literally Pokemon, it does have that really good attack, and so it is one of those Pokemon. Once you have it sitting on the field, you're like, okay, that's fine, I can do this. But going down to like the last couple seconds on the move time for Joseph's side, really thinking about his options here as Manectric goes for the overheat. I'm gonna be faster than Landorus. Does knock out that Tapu Lele. Does get that special attack drop, and so this Landorus is going to be free to attack once more, using Earthquake and be doing damage to this Porygon 2 this Manectric. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, even at -1. Oh, barely holds on. Yes, so this Manectric does hold on. Does get the critical hit on Porygon 2, but Porygon 2 now free to Trick Room. I
mean, going for the very safe Trick Room, you create a situation where even when that hypothetical happens where Manectric and Tapu Lele are both KO'd, and Kartana comes in, at least you have the speed control to start recovering, start attacking a little bit more. Manectric, actually the fastest thing on the field, potentially scary, but you force a situation where Landorus can get KO'd by Porygon 2 thanks to the Ice Beam, and then Overheat, as long as it doesn't miss, should be able to pick up that Kartana KO fairly easily. We know that it is a Bloom Doom from the previous sets Brandon's been playing. So even with the Overheat damage onto the Landorus, which didn't do that much, Kartana is a completely different story in that regard.
Kartana just, the minute you get any sort of like Ember near it, it'll just blow up. And we also know that's because Landorus is that Assault Vest, like it won't be able to protect. So, you know, very free to just Ice Beam in here, pick up that knockout on there, and Kartana's gonna have to make a choice really on what Pokemon it's gonna knock out at this point.
Manectric just going for the protect. It is. It's actually faster than Kartana. I was wrong in on that one. But I mean, by being able to KO Landorus, the thing that Brandon has to do here is he has to attack the Porygon 2 slot. Bloom Doom probably just in case that recover. The plants are spreading. You know, ducks prefer water, not grass. And if Pokemon has taught us anything, it's like grass beats water.
And so, yeah, the Landorus does get knocked out by that Ice Beam from Porygon 2 being the fastest thing in Trick Room at this moment. Bloom Doom from Kartana going to be going into the Manectric slot, which had protected. That doesn't really matter because even behind Protect, that 4
Very
HP.
fair play to go for, because if Manectric didn't protect there and he gets off the Overheat, that's just a game over. No shame in going for that, especially since you get the Beast Boost, and Porygon 2 needs the KO with the Ice Beam. Generally, Kartana without Focus Sash tend to run at least a bit of special defense investment or HP investment from their training, just so that Porygon 2 cannot directly, or because 2017 Porygon 2 was so common, directly KO it. Do see the Protect, just want to burn out those Trick Room turns.
Exactly. And a foul play from Porygon 2 going into that protected slot.
Very clever.
So not quite like not being able to do damage. Another
just for the game is so late, I don't mind doing this. We've just got confirmation that Mike Grosshans has eliminated Patrick Smith, the majority smart money for the tournament. And that's fantastic for me, because I thought Mike's matchup looked horrible, but that Mimikyu Snorlax stuff we saw, very clever from Mike. We see the Porygon 2 go down on Joseph's side, clinching the game for Brandon. Also very clever play, though it didn't quite work in his favor. I like him going for the foul play just because Kartana had Beast Boost. Now it's possible that Ice Beam still would have done more damage. But at that point, neither move was really going to one-hit KO without a crit, which to me, though I think foul play was sort of clever because you're using the attack boost, I do like the idea of going for Ice Beam just because it has the chance to freeze. You want those additional secondary effects just to increase your odds of victory, even if slightly slow.
And we saw Brandon
yeah.
get the really nice critical hits from like his last round, so maybe like RNG would have worked against him this time.
Absolutely.
But who knows? All right, so guys, one more time on your screen, we've got Joseph's team with that Manectric, Porygon 2, Snorlax, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, and Virizion. And on your right side with Brandon, we have Charizard, Porygon 2, Landorus Therian Form, Kartana, Alola Marowak, and Tapu Lele. This Virizion, I was happy.
Yeah, the Virizion was cool, but one of the main problems for Joseph was that it just couldn't carry its weight. That damage on Tapu Lele, just not enough, even with a critical hit. Probably not seeing Virizion make a return here. It would be really nice to see something like Tapu Fini, the ability to pressure both Landorus and Marowak while being able to change up the terrain, super important for him. Interesting to note, I think that one of the main themes that I talked about with Brandon, even though it hasn't quite worked out this way, was the usefulness of Porygon 2. I think Porygon 2 probably pretty underrated in this meta, though, seeing it in top 4 so much. I mean, Mike in finals has it. Both players here have it. Very strong Pokemon in the current format. And it played, I think, a bigger role for Joseph than for Brandon. If you can just supplement the team a bit more, Virizion's lacking positioning there made it harder on Porygon 2 in the end game. Porygon 2 probably could have won that damage, even just like one extra turn of damage that could have been offered early on, which is probably why you see Porygon 2 make its appearance earlier in the second game here.
Yeah, and so Joseph, like you said, leading that Porygon 2 and Manectric by its side, and Brandon having this Charizard and Tapu Lele, so we do get Lele once more on the field. Charizard, though, I think is a new one for him.
Yeah,
here.
We haven't seen him bring Charizard since Game 2 yesterday against Jackson, and it didn't work out that well. And in this specific spot, I was going to say positioning, been saying that a bit much. Manectric is pretty scary. He can go for the Volt Switch. Have to be a little wary of the Marowak, but he also go for the Snarl, try to weaken both special attackers, make it easier for Porygon 2 to set up a Trick Room.
All right, and so Charizard is going to be switching out for that Marowak just in case for any of those electric type attacks that Charizard does not like at all. But Porygon also switching out, not going to be going for Trick Room on this turn as Incineroar hits the field. Not going to be able to do any sort of fake out, obviously, because of that Psychic Trade. Mega Manectric, though, going to be coming from Joseph, so we will be getting an Intimidate into that Tapu Lele and into that Marowak. A little bit more important on that Marowak, but, if any Snarl comes out for that Tapu Lele, it's also going to be taking that special attack drop. But very good switch, and I think we'll see
Absolutely.
what move. So it does go for the Snarl. Going to connect with both Pokemon, and this Tapu Lele going to be taking
Oh,
that.
wow.
Ooh,
very solid damage on that Marowak.
Yeah.
Pretty much enabling Knockoff to pick up the KO on the next turn.
All right, yeah, and so Psychic from Tapu Lele into the spot where the Porygon 2 was not going to affect it because of that Dark typing. Ooh, that was...
I mean, in my mind, the Incineroar switch in signified that he wasn't bringing Tapu Lele to this matchup, but I think he was just more hard reading that Tapu Lele was going to Psychic, and it makes a lot of sense considering that Porygon 2, you want to dish out as much damage on it as possible, sort of baiting that Psychic, and to a successful extent. Now you have Tapu Lele who, still threatening to the Manectric, but in a position now where Joseph has a lot of power plays he can make with Incineroar. He could go for the knockoff just straight up on the Marowak, get that KO, get free damage on a switch in, but he can also just go, I'm going to ignore Marowak because it's been injured and just flare burst that Lele straight up.
All right, so Marowak being switched out for that Charizard that we saw on turn 1. Just kind of want to, protect that maybe a little bit. A Snarl once more from Manectric, going to connect with both Pokemon. This Tapu Lele going to be at -2 on its special attack. And this Incineroar possibly... Oh, so Psychic once more from Tapu Lele going into the Manectric spot, but that -2 still does really good damage on top of that Psychic Terrain as Knockoff from Incineroar goes into the Tapu Lele spot and knocking off that Choice Specs.
Yeah, not only weakening Tapu Lele so much there and bringing it so low in health, basically forcing it to switch out or be KO'd in my opinion, but Charizard switching to that Snarl really limits the positioning on Brandon's side because the Pokemon that is generally considered a nuke of sorts, being weakened before it could even get its engine going. Manectric being able to tank that Psychic just thanks to the continuous drops, and Incineroar applying very good pressure, not really scared of Charizard, Tapu Lele, or Marowak in the back. Really, the options that Brandon has for Incineroar are pretty limited if you look at Team Preview. He doesn't have anything that can really attack it directly, aside from Landorus Therian, but we've seen in the previous matchup that without Charizard at least, which we do have here, which also makes me consider that Landorus is the likely Pokemon in the back, had to KO a bunch of his own teammates to get that Earthquake off, and while it did work in that last game, it's not a consistent strategy that you can rely on. It was very context specific.
Right. And so Mega Charizard going to be coming from Brandon. So we will be getting the Drought and the Sun, which means all our fire type moves are going to be boosted. Manectric taking advantage of that immediately with that Overheat. We'll be getting that special attack drop, but goes into the Charizard slot actually. Maybe for a potential switch in that.
Yeah, wary of the Marowak.
Yeah. And Heat Wave from Charizard connecting with both Pokemon, notorious for missing, but does hit both. Gets the knockout on Manectric, so no more snarling from this dog. As Tapu Lele goes for a Moonblast into that Incineroar spot, but has lost its choice back, and it is up -2 special attack. So this Incineroar taking that really nicely, but does get the special attack drop on it, as Incineroar goes for the Flare Blitz.
I would love to see that on Charizard.
And it does go into that Charizard.
Thank you so much.
Does get the knockout on there.
You
just made Kimo a very happy person.
I love that. Like, he was like, he's going to Mega. I think I'm going to use the Sun better than he does. Like, it's also very good positioning-wise, not just offensive-wise, because you force Tapu Lele to stay on the field. The Pokemon with -2 stages of special attack lost its choice spec, dealing very small damage. Porygon 2 returning to the field, knowing that there's just not a lot of options there. Seeing the Kartana, not the Landers, a team choice that, while not as strong against the Incineroar, he probably planned on weakening it further at this point. That definitely something he'll consider for the Game 3 adjustments, as I believe that Joseph should have this locked up. Tapu Lele's looking weak. Kartana scared of the Incineroar. He doesn't have anything for Incineroar. While the HP is low and you can press Sacred Sword here, positioning, especially with Trick Room on your side of the field, creates a position where Incineroar can easily clean this up, but the Marowak still threatening because of that. But we do see Snorlax, something that really doesn't care about Marowak too much normally, but the Sun might actually come into play there.
All right, so Sacred Sword from Kartana going to the Snorlax.
Wow.
That's half health, procking the barrier from Snorlax. That Tapu Lele on Brandon's side of the field, just switch out for that Marowak, and then Incineroar going in for that Snorlax. Porygon 2 getting the Trick Room. The Snorlax, though, has already consumed its berry because that Sacred Sword did a lot of damage.
Hopefully the damage from earlier, the Snarl on Marowak is helpful here as Snorlax probably going for a high horsepower, removing Marowak. Marowak really actually foul play too. You don't even have to worry about that. The Snorlax training, interesting. A lot of Snorlax have been trained to take Sacred Sword without proccing the berry, but here we see Kartana able to put it in that range. Maybe trained in special defense or something like that. Would want to soak up things like opposing Charizards. If foul play and just going for the high horsepower, maybe double tapping the Marowak just for safety.
All right, so yeah, Marowak getting hit by that high horsepower from Joseph. But Snorlax taking that low kick from Marowak really nicely as Ice Beam from Porygon connects with the Kartana and does get it to about half health, but Sacred Sword once more from Kartana going to the Porygon slot this time. And still a little green health as Psychic Train does expire.
In my opinion, you had to remove the Snorlax there, and I think that maybe he got a bit complacent with the idea of low kick. Low kick, Snorlax is a big Pokemon, and you would think normally, well, this move based on weight might just remove Snorlax from the game. Snorlax able to take it even after the Sacred Sword thanks to that berry. Now you're in a position where Snorlax and Porygon 2 together can create a 1v3 situation. Even switches, Tapu Lele was so low on health and isn't good in Trick Room to the point where it's pretty safe. Knowing that Porygon 2 is slower than Marowak, sometimes that's not necessarily true because Marowak can tend to be fast, but we know that because Porygon 2 is on Brandon's side, he opted to go for a slower one.
All right, and Marowak protecting itself, not going to want to take another high horsepower as Kartana also goes for a double protect. He's going to burn another turn of Trick Room for Joseph as Snorlax high horsepowering into this protected slot, and this Porygon going to be using Ice Beam into the protected Kartana slot.
Brandon just trying to use this trying to try to weather the Trick Room a little bit, but yeah, because like the sun stuff is funny. But again, that might not and should not really be enough for him to outlast that Trick Room. There should still be about 3 turns left, if I'm not mistaken. The high horsepower pretty much needing to miss, and even then, Porygon 2 should be in such a position that it might be able to take on the Marowak.
All right, Kartana being withdrawn on Brandon's side as Tapu Lele comes back to the field. This Tapu Lele, the health is really,
the health is very off-putting.
And so Psychic Train does give it a little bit of a boost as high horsepower once more.
Oh no!
The Marowak does avoid
I hope
the
I
high
didn't
horsepower.
curse him. Because when I say things, hacks happens.
So Flare Blitz connected with Porygon 2 does get the knockout on the Porygon 2, but this Marowak will be taking that damage. still holds on from that as Sunlight goes away.
I mean, for what it's worth, though Marowak can protect, there's still Trick Room turns. We know that Tapu Lele cannot protect. Snorlax got to stick around. Snorlax something that could still pick up the KO on Lele, deal damage to the Kartana switch in, and remove the Marowak if it so chooses. Removing Marowak very safe because we know for a fact that Tapu Lele faster than the Incineroar, enabling what is essentially a free Flare Blitz on that slot, probably preventing a Kartana switch in the effort to burn Trick Room turns further. You might see a double KO here with Kartana probably going to protect in an attempt to stall out the Trick Room even more. At that point, probably going to go for the KO on the Incineroar, get the attack boost, and be able to weather Snorlax a little bit, Snorlax not having the immediate power necessary to KO Kartana.
Yeah, and so Snorlax goes for the Recycle and finds his Algalog Berry. Will be consuming it on this turn, going to be getting back that health that it lost from that low kick. As Merrick goes once more for that low kick, into the Incineroar, but does pick up that knockout.
That Recycle was so risky. I understand why you go for it, because the Protect on Marowak can enable you to be in a situation where he can do just that, basically.
Yeah.
And now we're in a position where I don't think Joseph can bring this back. He was so close.
Yeah.
Like, the high horsepower, he might have lost anyway, because at that point when Trick Room runs out, Kartana does beat Incineroar Snorlax in that context on the 1 versus 2. A bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
I thought he was looking very good there.
I think definitely just missing that high horsepower.
Yeah, the high horsepower miss was
hard.
vital. It would have forced Kartana back in because I believe Tapu Lele switched on that turn, and at that point you can KO the Lele because it doesn't have Protect, forcing Porygon 2 Incineroar versus Kartana, which is a lot better than Incineroar Snorlax versus Kartana.
Yeah.
A heartbreaker for Joseph, so close to that final round, but congratulations to Brandon moving on to face Mike Groshans in the finals.
We're apparently really bad at smart play choices.
Yeah, not the greatest calls from us there. But, it's an exciting final. I'm really interested to see how the hard Trick Room team goes against Brandon's team that had so much different offensive styles, especially just after coming against Joseph, who was more Trick Room inclined than not.
But, good game from both of those guys.
Yeah, good game from both.
Thank you for treating us to having Virizion on stream. That is
Virizion made an appearance.
Yeah, sentence I never thought I'd have to say aloud. And we will be back with your final matchup with Kimo and actually Len. So, thank you guys.
Your favorites.
All right.